Hi guys, it's Tony Robbins. You're listening to Habits and Hustle. Crush it.
On Habits and Hustle today, we have Dr. Charles Brenner. Dr. Brenner is one of the world's foremost authorities in the emerging area of NAD. NAD is a molecule that is critical to the healthy function of the trillions of cells in our bodies. He serves as the Alfred E. Mann Family Foundation Chair in the newly created Department of Diabetes and Cancer Metabolism at the City of Hope. He is also the chief scientific advisor to Chromadex, a global bioscience company behind the popular NAD boosting supplement called True Niagen, which of course I'm a huge fan of and talk about all the time. Among his most significant discoveries, in 2004, he identified nicotinamide riboside, otherwise known as NR, as a precursor or a booster of NAD levels. His pioneering research has paved the way for NAD research around the world. So without further ado, here is Dr. Charles Brenner. So let's just go from the beginning. So I've been a huge fan of NAD. I've been taking True Niagen for 2 years at least. Mm-hmm. And people always ask me what it is, and I describe it, and still there's some confusion. So in the layman's terms, Can you explain what NAD is and what the purpose of it is?
Yep. So NAD refers to 4 things inside of cells that are called coenzymes. They're the central catalysts of metabolism. So metabolism is the set of processes that allows us to convert everything that we eat into everything that we are. Not only produce the ATP biological energy that runs our bodies, but our cells have to make their own DNA, RNA, and protein. Our cells have to repair themselves. We don't eat bone in order to make bone, right? We don't, right?
Right.
We can choose to eat liver or not, but we generate our own hepatocytes no matter what we eat, right?
Right.
And so all of those processes are metabolism. And metabolism is the key to life. It's what the difference is between living things and non-living things. And what we found over the years is that NAD comes under attack in conditions of metabolic stress. And so that's the use case for taking what are called the vitamin precursors of NAD. Mm-hmm. And Pavel Bieganowski and I in 2004 discovered the vitamin activity of NR. That NR is an additional unanticipated vitamin that can allow our cells to rebuild NAD mm-hmm. and basically help everything run in the body.
Okay, so let me just kind of interject a little bit, right? So because NAD is something that we all have in our body, right?
Yes.
And so when I describe it to people, I always say something, because this is how I believe it to be, is that as you age, the levels of your NAD levels decrease, which makes it's basically connected to your mitochondrial function, correct? And then that decreases, which is why having a high supply, so to speak, of NAD in your body is really important.
So
what am I missing in
that?
Well,
it's close-ish.
Ish.
So right.
I love that.
Ish. So yeah, there's a lot of reports of NAD declining in aging.
Okay.
I would say that we don't fully understand, that story of in which tissues NAD is declining by how much and how that occurs. The way we see it, in our laboratory, and when we look at the quality of the data, we really see NAD coming under attack at the NAD system being constantly barraged by conditions of stress.
Right.
So, for example, we live in the air and we go outside in the sunlight. Mm-hmm. Those are 2 things that attack the NAD system, like oxidative damage, reactive oxygen species from oxygen, churns something called NADPH, which is one of the NAD coenzymes. Sunlight breaks our DNA, NAD plus comes under attack. The net result of all of those things probably is that NAD is declining in all our tissues as a function of age. So, that's probably not wrong. And
Probably not wrong. Okay.
Probably not wrong. I'm cautious.
Yes,
I'm cautious.
you
I
are.
try not to get ahead of my skis.
Yes.
Right. Because I don't think that aging is one thing. I think that NAD isn't even one thing. It's four things. And so I don't like to make, outlandish claims that we can't prove. What we see in the laboratory is we see very powerful effects of NR in animal models, right? In mouse and rat models. So we see protection against heart failure. We see protection against neurodegeneration. We see protection against alcoholic conditions in animals. We see, better exercise functions and so forth and so on. And then that is what's called hypothesis generating, right? So then we can go into human beings, right? And in human beings, we've seen anti-inflammatory effects of NR. We've seen NR in a combination of supplements, accelerate time to recovery from COVID.
Right. Well,
right?
I have all these things. I mean, that's the thing that I find. So, because a lot of people, a lot of times, and I know because you especially are very, very anti, making, the claims of it being a magic pill, or you don't like when someone says it's anti-aging or aging in reverse because it's not exactly scientific.
It's not evidence-based.
Right.
I mean, the thing is,
but that's how it's being sold, right? That's how people understand it. So that's simple. It's the simplest way to understand it.
Yeah, maybe. I would say that. Legitimately.
Yeah.
Protection of NR in different tissues protects cellular and tissue function, enhances resiliency, repair. NR is we went through a process where there were patents and, Chromadex, as I think you introduced me, decided to, develop NR as a nutritional supplement, as an ingredient. And then when...
is NR the main... So I know that because you also were the first to create NR as a supplement, like you just said. What is a precursor? So what does that even mean?
Yeah. So it basically means, so NAD are these four things inside cells that are coenzymes. And like many molecules in cells have what are called phosphates in them. Mm-hmm. And the phosphates are put on inside of cells. So there's no vitamin that has the phosphates already on, right? And NR is the biggest piece of NAD that can get into cells.
Got
right?
it. Okay.
So it's the biggest piece of NAD that cells can use to make NAD, right?
So your body can produce it on its own.
Well, so yeah, because it's what's called, it's the key part.
Right.
Right. So, our bodies will make NAD just the same way a cow's liver makes NAD, and liver is a great source of NAD, by the way.
It is?
In part because it has so many mitochondria, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I was under, I actually was under, I was in the understanding that your body can produce it.
Yes.
So then if you eat cow liver or whatever, chopped liver, you can actually get a great source of.
So what? And
or
the
cow
interesting
milk?
thing is,
cow's milk.
There's NR in cow's milk. We showed that a number of years ago. Foods, really living things, whole foods with a small W and a small F, contain NAD coenzymes in them.
Okay.
So minimally processed foods, when you're eating them, really have big supplies of NAD in them. The NAD breaks down in our digestion. Okay. The NAD breaks down into the vitamin precursors that are then used in order to rebuild the NAD supply.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yep.
Now, with age and metabolic challenges, and you don't have to be really old, like you could be a 22-year-old football player and feel like, NR supplementation gives you an edge and allows you to repair after all of this contact and so forth, and protects against, the effects of the sport. When you are eating food, your food is being broken down into these NAD precursors. You're using those precursors to rebuild the NAD supply, supplementing with the vitamin precursors basically enhances that process. But it's true that there's NR in milk, but really the source of NAD precursors in food is really NAD. So it's a cycle of life. Living things have NAD in it.
Yeah.
They also have macronutrients, protein, fat, and carbohydrate. They have micronutrients. Everything gets broken down. Everything gets rebuilt. The rebuilding process is metabolism. NAD is critical for metabolism.
Right.
And NAD gets challenged by metabolic stress. So the use case for NAD precursor vitamins is that it allows you to keep your NAD stores full, resistant to these challenges, which even include things like coronavirus infection. We've shown in the laboratory that attacks the NAD system.
But like
right?
also with the longevity thing, I'm just going to go back to those things, right? Because you were saying, yes, you can't make a longevity claim. However, it helps with your resilience. It helps with recovery. It helps with your cellular health. It helps with being tired, with your energy. All those things decline as you get older.
Absolutely.
Right?
They all decline. The repair declines as you get older, and all those things decline.
So my hypothesis would be...
So your hypothesis is that it
helps with
anti-aging, but I'm not going to say that because I can't test that.
I know you can.
So and
as a scientist.
And actually no one else can really either, right? So the actual trials are done in conditions of metabolic stress. So you're going to enroll people, right? And you can have an anti-inflammatory thing as an endpoint. You could see whether NR lowers those inflammatory markers. You can get a definitive answer to that in the course, actually in 3 weeks. There was a study in Birmingham, UK, that showed that in 3 weeks, older men, placebo-controlled trial, had lower inflammatory markers if they were on NR. It even persisted after they switched over and were on the placebo. The fact that they had been on NR, their inflammatory markers were still lower.
See?
Right? So that was impressive, right? But you score that result as a win, right?
Yes.
You don't go back. You don't have the money to test them for their survival in 5, 10, 20 years, right? So that's why effective longevity trials, are not practical. They're not really being done. There's something called the metformin TAME trial.
I was going to ask you about metformin also.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I mean, the thing is, the data show...
Explain what metformin is for people who don't know what metformin is.
It's a diabetes drug.
Right. A lot of people take it for longevity and anti-aging.
So that's not, in my view, wise.
Why?
Why?
Explain.
Because it actually inhibits mitochondrial function. It literally you said that your understanding, as a fitness person, is that NR and NAD is good for mitochondria.
Right.
So I could show you data that metformin depresses mitochondrial function. How do you feel about it now?
Okay, well, no, this is why I wanted to have you on so badly, because there's such conflict. Like, one person says one thing, and I'm not the scientist. Yeah. I had David St. Clair on a while ago, and he was talking all about NAD as being, a longevity drug. He takes it every day. Also metformin we talked about as well. And, people build their platform and business around using words like anti-aging or longevity because I think it's easy and palatable for people to understand. Yep. But you're like the antithesis. You're like a scientist unless you have clear, exact. I mean, I guess that's how. I don't want to hype,
right?
You're about zero hype.
I mean, the thing is that I actually think that hype hurts, and the metformin and rapamycin thing, may be a great example of that, right? So you're taking drugs that are indicated for people that have conditions, right?
Right.
So metformin is used as a diabetes drug. It helps people that have diabetes control their blood glucose. Okay,
their blood levels.
That's important, right? And rapamycin was developed as an immune modulator that will allow people to do that avoid graft versus host and other things. I really don't want to take something that is going to depress my immune system, right? Then some of the the rapamycin fans come out and say, well, it's immune modulating, it's upregulating this and then it's downregulating that. To me, it's not, it's something that's sure it's being tested in dogs. There's a lot of data on mice, but I don't think that, I think it's easily demonstrable that prescription drug use is associated with shorter lifespans. It's easily demonstrable that for thousands of years, the claims that people have made about fountains of youth and anti-aging have been wrong and not evidence-based. So I'm generally, my starting position is going to be, I'm going to take the other side of that bet.
Okay, well, so good. So I'm going to go through a few of them. So you said already, metformin, because people, I think it's more of like a biohack, right? People are using it more for they think if they're regulating their blood sugar, that will help them with longevity. How? But why are they taking, like, what is the other side's,
some of those people are also keto and
exactly,
and
usually they are, or
right.
They're intermittent fasting. Do you like intermittent fasting?
Well, it's extremely powerful in mice, but of course, a mouse has a much more rapid metabolism, and hour per hour comparisons of fast are much more severe in a mouse than they are in a human.
That's right.
Right? And so, some of that stuff doesn't actually translate. So, for example, Ethan Weiss, who's a very accomplished cardiology professor at UCSF, actually practiced intermittent fasting for 7 years. Okay, he believed in intermittent fasting. He set up a very wise, well-controlled clinical trial of intermittent fasting versus non-intermittent fasting, and basically could not demonstrate a benefit, And so I think that the intermittent fasting idea is, science-y, and I think that it's very evidence-based in mice. The idea that, and personally, for sure, overeating is bad and is associated with obesity and type 2 diabetes and, orthopedic problems, sleep apnea, you name it, right?
Right.
And a lot of bad outcomes and a lot of shorter, health spans, lifespans. But that doesn't mean that, fasting is necessarily going to be a lifespan extending thing. For me, I think that I'm a breakfast person. Okay, so
too.
I get up, I have black coffee, I have breakfast, and then I can work, I can exercise, I can function fine. I don't eat too late at night. I think it is important to have, the hunger cycle in there, but absolutely, am I on the clock about feeding, fasting? No, that's not a practice of mine.
But how about that's why I love having you on. It's like you're the opposite of what so many scientists, doctors have said on the show. What about autophagy? Autophagy.
Okay, so autophagy, fascinating molecular mechanism, right? So the idea in autophagy is that there are cells that have too much stuff and some damaged proteins and stuff like that. And so with some, sort of nutritional deprivation, they turn over some of their molecules and then they kind of get refreshed and stuff like that. Absolutely, we know that that's a mechanism in the lab. When people say, "Oh yeah, I'm fasting and my levels of this and that are such and such, and so I'm kicking up my autophagy," I think it's kind of babble. There's no measurement of their autophagy, and strangely enough, some of the same people that take rapamycin, right, are also taking like leucine and leucine-related amino acids whose biochemical effect is to stimulate the TOR pathway.
Right.
in order to make more muscle.
make more,
right? And they're literally taking leucine, which is going to stimulate TOR, and then they're taking rapamycin, which is going to inhibit TOR. It's sort of like too many drugs, too many supplements, and it makes no sense.
It's like basically doing too many different diets at the same time. It's all basically counteracting each other.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
That's basically it. Okay, so then how about metformin we got, resveratrol.
Resveratrol.
Yeah.
So resveratrol is a perfectly nice antioxidant, right? It's found in grapes, right? It's also found in peanuts. And, it has a lot of, proteins in human cells that it, associates with. There's a lot of proposed mechanisms for beneficial effects of it. There's a lot of things that it does in cell culture. There's a few things it does in mice. I'm pretty doubtful of anything demonstrated that it does in people. One of the proposed mechanisms of resveratrol is that it binds to a human protein called SIRT1. It doesn't. And then
it doesn't?
No.
So where did this all come from? Because do you remember that was like the biggest craze, the biggest fad. Things always cycle, right? Like now, I mean,
it came from a series of, peer-reviewed studies whose conclusions are not reproducible, right? So initially it was found in supposedly a yeast assay in which it made yeast to live longer, right?
Right.
So, and I've used that assay before, and that assay depends upon a yeast gene called SIR2, and SIR2 is a perfectly nice yeast gene. The problem is that, that increasing the lifespan of a yeast is not the same as increasing the lifespan of a worm, fly, or mouse or human. And all of the subsequent stuff that was said about the SIR2 related genes in worms turned out not to be true, in flies turned out not to be true. It couldn't be demonstrated in mice. Resveratrol was said to bind to the yeast SIR2 protein and then to the human SIRT1 protein. It doesn't do those things. Now, there's a paper a few years ago that said, oh, here's the way it really does bind to human SIRT1. But if you look at the structure and how it supposedly binds to SIRT1, if that's true, then it couldn't have been discovered the way it was discovered by binding to yeast SIR2 because they don't have the same amino acid sequences like the protein structure. So the whole thing is a mess. It's a mess. And the people that were convinced to take resveratrol were really sold a bill of goods. And anybody that is still defending it is not being evidence-based.
Wow, that is unbelievable, because that was like the big thing that everyone was told to take.
Yeah.
So basically, all these are just more just like myths. Metformin, resveratrol.
Well, no. Metformin's a medicine.
It's a but I'm saying for the uses of longevity.
That's not a myth. That's also a hypothesis.
Also weight loss. People would take it because they thought it would, as your blood sugar is becoming more balanced, you obviously maybe lose more weight because they're not having those spikes of cortisol, insulin.
So while the carbohydrate insulin hypothesis has also been pretty much debunked. And, so it turns out, so Kevin Hall, a tremendous researcher at NIH, has very carefully compared isocaloric diets, total number of calories, that are low fat versus high fat, essentially. And, according to the carbohydrate insulin model, carbohydrate insulin hypothesis, those diets should not behave the same way because, according to the carbohydrate insulin hypothesis, it's all about carbs driving your insulin to sequester, fat in the adipose, blah, 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 and you'll never lose weight with a high percent carb diet. That's just not true. There's thousands of years of history in the Far East in which people had a high percent rice, high percent carbohydrate in their diet, high glycemic index food, right?
Yeah.
And they were not overweight and they were not obese. And the obesity epidemic in the Far East is total calorie driven. And in fact, it's an increase in the amount of fat that is in the Asian diet, is more animal products, more meat, more animal fat. It's accompanied by a lower percent carbohydrate. Kevin Hall's study, where you look at diets that have very different compositions, it kind of comes down to calories in, calories out. Basically, if you're in an energy deficit, right, meaning you're expending more energies than you're putting into your body, then you're going to lose weight, right? So it's about sustainability. It's about, if you're going to do a lifestyle intervention that is going to, result in weight loss, it's got to be something you can live with.
Yeah.
So if that turns out to be high fat, if that turns out to be keto, and it's a sustainable thing for somebody,
consistency,
then basically, and they are losing weight. They're losing weight because they're in a calorie deficit and because they can sustain their diet. That doesn't invalidate anybody else's experience that is on a low fat diet that can also lose weight.
Right.
The key is, can they sustain that? How many cheat days do they have?
Yeah,
or whatever.
absolutely. Because you said the whole thing, because that's like a bad word, right? Like, it's, people get very, very mad if you say calories in versus calories out. They think that's too simplistic, right? So if I was just going to eat M&Ms and chocolate bars, but keep it at like my calorie count,
there's actually data showing that there's a person that ate nothing but baked potatoes for a month or something like that. I can't cite the study, but potato actually has a pretty high satiety.
It does. It also has a resistance starch in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but it is a pretty high glycemic index food. But
no fat.
And it has no fat.
Yeah.
Right. So it's essentially almost an all carb diet.
It's full carb.
Right?
Yeah.
And if that's, for me, would not be very pleasant.
I like baked potatoes.
I would like to actually put some, onion
sour cream and onion.
Well, I do olive oil because I'm lactose intolerant. So,
okay.
But all the good stuff that you can put on it, it makes it much more enjoyable, right? But so calories in, calories out is not a mechanism. Calories in and out is a basically physical constraint on the way the body works. Right.
But there's a big thing about people are all like, what calories you're putting in, your body reacts different, body composition, all the other things that happen if you have.
So a lot of that stuff is not evidence-based, and it's really not evidence-based.
It's like it basically is anecdotal, as you
Well, everybody wants to weight their own anecdotes, right? So people that swear by keto are the people that can sustain that diet. People that swear by low fat are the people that can sustain that diet. And now, basically, I think that 2021 in terms of weight management is going to go down as the year in which, semaglutide at 2.4 milligram per week was approved. Again. So semaglutide. So there's something called, there's a bunch of different names. Incretins is one name. And the other thing, they're called GLP-1 analogs or GLP-1 receptor agonists. GLP-1RA. Okay. You can Google that.
Everyone should have their Google open when they listen to this podcast, have like a thesaurus.
So I think there might be a trade name, and I don't have anything to do with the company.
Okay.
But I think the trade name is maybe Wegovy, but like scientists call it semaglutide.
Okay.
And it's related to something called GLP-1. Okay. GLP-1 actually helps your body make more insulin. Okay. So the idea that something that helps your body make more insulin could help you lose weight is already a head scratcher for somebody that thinks that insulin is the enemy.
Yes.
Okay. Insulin helps drive body into your adipose and your skeletal muscle. Insulin and all the other hormones, they're all functioning in physiology as something that are your friend until we have a problem, and then things can get messed up.
So, by the way, remember when I said to you, let's keep it very layman's terms for these people, please, and for me, those people being me.
So the bottom line
What's
is
the 2021
semaglutide. Basically, the way it works is by allowing people to follow through on their intentions to eat less.
Okay.
Basically, it acts in the brain at the satiety center. So it acts in a bunch of different places. But
I'm a big believer in that.
But basically it gets people to feel full, right? To the point that you want it. It's amazing actually what the side effect is, right?
What is it?
So the side effect is it can make people feel nauseous. Well, you know that feeling that you feel like late in Thanksgiving dinner, when like someone brings out of the kitchen the third pie, like the pecan or whatever, but you already had the apple and the pumpkin,
absolutely.
Right? And you would have loved that pecan like 2 pies ago, but there's a point where it's like, no, right?
Yes.
So it turns out that people don't have, the problem with overweight and obesity. It's not a failure of willpower. It's actually the brain gets programmed to defend a level of fat. And basically, this new class of drugs, and I know this is a lifestyle thing where you're not pushing drugs, and I'm not really pushing anything, but they allow people to feel the satiety as their body gets full. And so it's actually amazing, and I think that
I heard is that the needle?
It's like a once a week injection. There's going to be an oral version of it.
Okay, first of all, and of course I've got no dog in the game for this. Yeah. I heard about that. Does that actually work though?
It really works. Like 15% weight loss in 6 or 12 months, and what compared to the same guidelines. So they'll randomize people. And they say, try to eat less, move more, right? Which we know sort of doesn't generally work, right? Mm-hmm. But enrollment in a trial gives you some responders, okay?
Yeah.
You get some people that will lose weight on the placebo, right? You see, it's called a waterfall plot. You see a few people that will gain weight. There's a lot of people in the middle that had no effect because it was on placebo. And then you see some responders, and those are the people that are like really coachable or whatever, and they didn't get any semaglutide, and yet they lost some weight over this trial, right?
Right.
Then you compare that group.
Yep.
So remember, I cautioned you against anecdotal data because your friends are not the same as everybody, right?
Right, exactly.
So then you enrolled people that had the same, only they had an intention for weight loss, they're overweight, right? And then you see the whole curve shifted where there's much greater weight loss, much greater compliance, basically. There's no magic. They all had different, whatever they eat in all of their different homes, in their hundreds of different homes. But the people that were losing weight basically were able to sustain an energy deficit, and so they lost weight.
So what's that thing called though? The shot. It's a shot, isn't it?
Yeah, Wegovy, I think, is the trade name. It's
Can anybody do you have to be a certain, you have to be obese? Do you have to be a certain BMI? Like, what is the way?
Well, insurance is going to be the problem in the US, right? And but I mean, they ought to become more available, especially for people that, overweight is, and obesity, are conditions that challenge people's health and well-being, their ability to work. And
I saw a whole article on this, and then
it's a big deal.
It's a huge deal. But then, don't you have to be taking it your whole life then? Because once you stop, what happens?
I don't know.
Or is it neuroplasticity? You get used to it eventually.
It may be that after substantial weight loss, then you have a different set point, and you might be able to go off it. But I would say, given the safety of it, I would say, it's way safer than a lot of other things that people do, including crazy dieting, right?
Absolutely.
Non-sustainable dieting.
I have a girlfriend who's unfortunately very, very overweight. And, she tries everything, every program, keto, this. And then what happens is, like, to your point, like, you're doing so many different things, everything's counteracting. And she's more overweight than she was even before she started this whole spiral.
We don't want to create sort of orthorexia or mishigas about how you want food, right? You want people to restore balance, eat when they're hungry. And to my mind, if there's a medication that allows people to do that, I think it's a great thing.
So then, okay, let's get back. I'm curious about this, the aging and then and the longevity stuff. So if you won't say, because that's not your thing to say NAD, I'm just going back. I'm just kind of circling back. That it's good for longevity or anti-aging. What is good for longevity and anti-aging? Is there anything?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
We know that public sanitation. We know that clean food and clean water and vaccination and probably not having a gun in the home and being protected from infection. And I think it's demonstrable that I'm not sure if the data are the same in men and women, but like for a man to be married is actually good for his longevity. Maybe it hurts yours. I don't know. But
I was going to say, I don't know that everyone would say that. That's for sure. But if you fight a lot, then it's not good for your longevity.
Probably not. But I don't know if there are really good data, but I would tend to think that a positive outlook on life is good. But
you're just saying a lot of you're just saying a lot of like platitudes.
Medicine uses, prescribed medicine use is probably associated with. See, the thing is, you could call anything a longevity drug. Like a type 1 diabetic needs insulin, right? So if you deprived a type 1 diabetic of insulin, they could go into shock and die, right?
Right.
But endocrinologists don't call insulin a longevity drug. Right. It's just a sloppy term. So
however, can I interrupt a second? Yeah. Why is it that I feel like in the last probably 5 years, maybe the last 4 years, you've been hearing a lot of hype around NAD and NR, but before that you really weren't. Like you were hearing much more about I can never pronounce it. Resveratrol. And that was more the mainstream one. But NAD is still not mainstream by any means, but it's still I feel like it's getting much more well-known than number one.
Well, NAD is the key to life.
It's key to life, but it wasn't something that if you go right now to like 10 people, I would guess 8 out of 10 of those people won't know what NAD is.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's what I was going to say. And the second thing is, then if it's not really proven for longevity, anti-aging, why would someone take it and who should be taking it?
Yep. So I would say the conditions of metabolic stress that attack the NAD system are like essentially inevitable. Back in the day when I used to give these big presentations in crowded rooms, you and I are both vaccinated and sitting in your kitchen with air circulation. But
barely air circulation.
We're doing okay. But I used to say, okay, show of hands. How many people would, if we had a giveaway, would hop on a jet, many time zones, fly to Ibiza, sit out in the sun, listening to loud music, drinking wine, and eating lots of food late into the night. And everybody would, like every aspect of that sounds amazing, right?
Right.
So sunlight, disrupts your DNA, air, and probably, some of the air travel. There's a radiation exposure. The loud music, we know in animal studies, sufficient noise to induce hearing loss. So that's probably, greater than the music, but maybe, right up against the speakers. That attacks the NAD system, right?
Why? It's just because it's
not entirely clear how and why. not entirely clear, but many conditions of metabolic stress attack the NAD system. Alcohol, we know how that works. So that leads to a direct effect in the liver. We know that's operational in human beings. We've actually looked at what's called the NAD metabolomes in the liver of people that have alcoholic liver disease. We published that. Over nutrition, meaning eating too much. We know from animal studies that the NAD system is disturbed, again, in the liver. In animals that are overfed, we know that NR is corrective, protects against fatty liver development in overfeeding. So, and now I barely drink now, and I'm not, overfed, but we are in conditions, we are exposed to inevitable conditions of metabolic stress. And, when the immune system gets activated, it's actually burning some NAD. So we think that there's a use case of NR potentially in prevention of infectious diseases, which are a huge cause of mortality and morbidity. So if someone ever did an NR longevity trial, it may be fewer deaths from infection, but I would rather do an infection trial because I can complete an infection trial in a distinct amount of time.
But with your example that you just gave, going to Ibiza, drinking, and loud music, that would mean if NAD is being disrupted or decreased by those, by the stress of your body, I would say then why wouldn't teenagers take it or young adults? So why are people who are usually over the age of, you tell me, 35, 40 years old, the ones who are really acclimating to it, gravitating to it?
There are athletes, that have been
tons of athletes.
Right, there's a lot of athletes, right?
Yeah, tons of athletes.
There's
Fitness
athletes,
people
there's athletes
for recovery.
in college university programs and they're much younger.
Right.
So they're involved in conditions of metabolic stress.
But
teenagers,
kids, they drink a lot, they go out late, they do all those things. Why are they not the ones who are?
I don't know. There's potentially a use case there.
Right? Maybe you should do maybe that should be your next lab study of some kind.
There was something proposed when I was at the University of Iowa. There were things that were proposed that related to some kinds of behaviors like binge drinking, and I didn't really want to do those types of interventions, but they could be done.
They for sure. So if all those things are stressing your body, it shouldn't be a drug for people who are aging. Then it should be a drug for really anybody and everybody.
Well, we're all aging.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, and a 16-year-old, or because me being 29. No, I'm joking. Or my friends or whatever.
I'm 59, so just full disclosure.
You're 59. People are taking it who are on the aging path quicker than a 16-year-old, let's say. Okay. So then let's talk about NR. So NR is what you are also the godfather of, or the pioneer of, creating that into the supplement. So as a precursor, that helps your body create NAD on its own by itself.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So NR was kind of a known compound when I started working on it. But it was really known. It was known to be like a growth factor for this weird bacterium that 12 people in the world wanted to grow that bacterium, right? Oh. So I discovered the vitamin activity of NR, right? And then it was developed by Chromadex. So the idea is that you take it orally and then it supports your body, keeping NAD levels in multiple tissues.
Okay, so when I had David St. Clair on, he was talking about something called NMN, right? And then I saw later on that you guys had a little bit of like a Twitter conversation, so to speak. Okay. Yeah, conversation. That's a euphemism for battle, perhaps, over how it gets into your body better. Is it the NR system? Is it the NMN? And it looks like you won the battle a little bit, but it's
not
even a little bit
decided science.
It looks like you won the battle.
It was decided science in the sense that, if you take the body, so you could take I just said to you that, we could eat unprocessed foods and they have NAD in it, right? So NAD is going to break down. NAD gets split into two pieces. It's NMN. NMN gets further, digested. Basically, it's NR. NR could be further digested. It's going to be nicotinamide, and even one step further, it's going to be nicotinic acid. The last three things that I mentioned, NR, nicotinamide, and nicotinic acid, are the vitamins. Okay. NMN.
The smaller particles.
Yeah, they're a small part, and they can get into cells. And, I'm pretty sure that David knows that NMN doesn't get into cells intact. So there's been some obfuscation on that. But NMN has to have the phosphate removed before it can get into cells. NMN is basically is going to act as NR. After it gets, into your body, the phosphate's going to be removed. NR is going to get into a cell, and then the phosphate has to be put on again.
Okay, this makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
Okay, you lost me. Okay, so I'm like, okay, honestly. Okay, so basically NMN. Okay, so if someone is, if I took NMN versus taking NR?
Well, the first problem with that is like who's making that NMN and why do you think there's NMN in it? That's a first problem.
So is there an actual an NMN supplement?
Yeah, there are NMN supplements, but their safety, dossiers are basically unknown to me. I mean, there might be one that is claiming by themselves to be generally regarded as safe, but I don't believe that there are any NMN supplements that have anything near the safety dossier of the NR that was commercialized by Chromadex. So the first question is, do you know what you're getting? Is there NMN in there? And are there other contaminants in there, that you'd be exposing yourself to? So to me, it doesn't seem like a super safe activity. The second is, let's say there is NMN there.
Okay.
So you would need for, 300, I guess you said you were taking 500 milligrams of Niagen, which is NR chloride. You'd have to have 550 or 600 milligrams of NMN to have the same effective amount of an NAD precursor. Because why? Because NMN is bigger, has this phosphate on, right? Then the only thing that's going to happen is your body is going to take the phosphate off. The NR is going to get into your cell. So at best, NMN should be acting as NR. So it's hard to understand the use case of NMN other than some folks went out there and advocated for it. There are animal studies that show NMN essentially does the things that NR does.
Okay.
But, the data indicate that the phosphate comes off and that NMN is acting as NR. So I don't.
So why not just take NR basically?
Yeah, if you're gonna take a, if the idea is to take a vitamin to replenish your NAD, the choices are nicotinic acid, which causes flushing, right?
Okay, what do you mean flushing?
Flushing means you think you're hot now. If you take nicotinic acid at like 250 milligrams, your face will turn red and your extremities will be hot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then nicotinamide, not a lot of people have advocated for really high dose nicotinamide. In like mice, it's one of the ways to induce type 1 diabetes. So it's sort of like not considered to be the world's best thing.
Right.
In high amounts. In low amounts is great. In niacinamide, vitamin B3,
right,
as niacinamide is in small amounts in multivitamins, nothing wrong with that. But no one has really very few people have made a strong argument for really high amounts of nicotinamide.
Right.
But the other advantage of nicotinamide riboside, NR, is it doesn't cause flushing. It's not associated with the negative effects that have been seen in nicotinamide. And when NAD comes under attack, the NR pathway, the gene pathway that that basically my group discovered, that pathway gets ramped up. So basically the stressed cell and tissue is telling us that it's looking for NR in order to fill up its NAD stores. And nicotinamide and NR don't work identically in some of those models. So like there's a heart failure model where the NAD is coming under attack. The mouse heart is losing its NAD, right? And it's losing its expression, its gene expression for turning nicotinamide into NAD while it's turning up the NR pathway. So we give those animals side by side. Nicotinamide doesn't really restore their NAD. We give them NR, restores their NAD and their cardiac function.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Then how about other stuff like NR and Alzheimer's, NR and Parkinson's?
All being tested. Yeah, all being tested.
And so far, do you have any type of data that
so
you can
there's
share?
something that just came out on Alzheimer's that was a placebo-controlled study of NR in what's called the nutritional cocktail or something like that. It's this 4 supplement. It contains some leucine, carnitine, and N-acetylcysteine in addition to NR.
Okay.
And they're reporting a benefit of this nutritional cocktail in Alzheimer's patients. Haven't carefully looked at the study that's being reviewed. There's something I'm involved in that is being reviewed that I won't talk about yet. But
can you give us a little hint?
Well, there's more and more studies of NR in neuroprotection, and for sure that there are studies in Parkinson's, in mild cognitive impairment, which is it's a kind of a people that are progressing into Alzheimer's, and I'm excited by the trials. The mechanism is that NAD is coming under attack, and that NR's supporting their blood flow, their cognition, and so forth.
So what's the minimum amount that someone should be taking? What's the maximum? I know it's all over the board.
Yeah, I don't talk about my own dose because I don't feel like I'm not your doctor and stuff. So the basic product was introduced at 300 milligrams per day as a typical consumer dose. There's something called True Niagen Pro that doctors' offices can get, practitioners can get. So 500 milligrams at a higher dose, and then most of these.
That's what I take.
And most of these therapeutic trials are kind of 1 gram a day, or even 1 to 2 grams a day. We know is safe.
And then, do you cycle it? Like I thought, can your body acclimate to anything, like any supplement, right? So does it better to do a month on, a week off, cycle things like you would?
I don't have a
I do my allergy
basis
medication
for doing that. We think it's sustainable. Excuse me. There are there's always longer term trials that are being done. But, we think it's, safe to take. And most people take it in the morning. I know some people that take it, in the evening. And I think that the 1 gram, the 2 gram people probably split it one and one. But that's kind of done in disease trials and stuff.
Wow. How about just in general? How did you even get into doing this research?
Yeah.
What were you doing before? Give me some of your background, or, you didn't just one day be like, I want to really kind of figure out this whole NAD problem.
Yeah, I was.
Or maybe you did.
No, I was minding my own business, 2003, 4, working on an enzyme, which is, what biochemists love to do, right? Pretty nerdy stuff. And
You're not a nerd.
I like this particular enzyme. And, we have a phrase in science that did not escape my notice that this enzyme's product, the thing the enzyme is there for, is to make NAD, right? I know that NAD is a central catalyst of metabolism, right? So I think, I wonder what else is known about NAD and whether other people might be interested in NAD. And then I started questioning what I call the received wisdom of how NAD is made, which is like NAD, there's an arrow coming from tryptophan. It takes 8 different enzymes to make NAD from tryptophan. There's an arrow coming from nicotinic acid that takes like 3 enzymes to make NAD that way in a yeast cell.
Yeah.
And then there's an arrow coming from nicotinamide, and people thought that they knew all of the ways to make NAD. And I thought, you know what, I can, as like a side project of how I'm figuring out this enzyme.
Right.
I want to see if the received wisdom on making NAD is correct. Maybe something's wrong. You know, I don't believe everything that I'm told, right?
No, that's for sure.
So I want to see if it's correct, and I want to see if the parts, even if they are correct, are complete. I didn't actually find anything that was wrong other than it was incomplete and that there was this NR pathway. And then we could see from the genes and the sequences of the genes that this pathway exists from yeast all the way to human beings. And that NR would not only have vitamin activity in yeast,
right, but
that it would have vitamin activity in humans. And then subsequently, we and others have been able to see that the NR genes, the NR kinase genes, get ramped up just when your body needs NAD. So that's kind of the unique aspect of NR.
Okay.
Is it's not only not flushing, doesn't have the side effects of high nicotinamide, but it's the precursor that stress cells want. So we think that it has a higher value to the body.
Wow. Now, what's next though? Are you besides finishing or doing more research on, of course, Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, or anything else that you're working on, even at City of Hope?
Yeah. So I'm not
cool or interesting?
I collaborate with groups that are doing the neuroprotection. I do a lot of what are called NAD metabolomes. So I analyze what happened to the NAD system. My group is blinded. So the samples come in with a number on them and we analyze them, and then the stuff gets unblinded. We look at the data. But we're interested in a number of things. One thing that we're interested in is, I know, you're a mom. So you've undergone the amazing process that is postpartum. And I'm not referring to depression. I'm just referring to the fact that you had kids.
Yes.
So at the moment that you had a kid,
yep,
your body went from this amazing transformation of producing this
child,
yes, to
twice,
twice, to now your body transforms again suddenly, right?
Not so sudden, but okay.
But the prolactin program gets turned on immediately.
Oh, wow.
The hormones change immediately. And immediately, your body is trying to mobilize your protein, fat, and lipid to your mammary to produce this amazing substance, milk, that was, evolved to produce all of the nutrition for the baby. Wow. Whether mom chooses to do that or not, that's the program, right? And so we discovered, using rodent models, that postpartum is an example of metabolic stress to the NAD system. And that her liver gets supported by oral nicotinamide riboside. She can accelerate and increase her weight loss. She can produce more milk. The milk has a higher quality. And even the offspring development is better if the mom is supplemented. So there are people at UC, it's really cool. So there are people at UC Davis that are going to do clinical trials on this, to improve mom's lactation, and in the context of preemies, and non-preemies as well. I think there's 2 trials.
Oh, wow.
And then I want to see the quality of the milk, and then I want to understand. The mechanisms of all that, like what's it doing for the mom, and how's it doing that, and stuff like that.
Wow. So again, when did you start with the City of Hope, or when did you get that
Just
role?
August of 2020. Yeah, I was going backwards. I was head of biochemistry at University of Iowa, 2009 to 2020.
Okay.
The 6 years prior, so 2003 to 2009, I was at Dartmouth, in the frozen north of New Hampshire.
Right, I saw that. That was part of your bio.
And then the 7 years prior to that, I was in Philly at Thomas Jefferson University. And then the 3 years prior to that, I was a postdoc at Brandeis in Boston.
And at Stanford also.
And then the 4.5 years prior to that, I was a graduate student at Stanford.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then I did biotech actually in the San Francisco Bay Area as well for 5.5 years. I graduated from college in 1983.
My gosh. So like, have you always just been, even as a kid, like do you have any hobbies besides this kind of, besides NAD? And what do you like to do?
I like building things with my hands. I like trying to fix things. I don't always succeed. Okay. I like gardening. I build raised bed gardens. I grow things.
Do you hang around all other scientists?
No.
And professors
I go to a gym
and academics?
Yeah, I love hiking. Okay. My new gym is a climbing gym, so I'm trying to learn the wall, the bouldering thing. Yep. I like being a novice. Yeah. Right. I like the rate of growth. So there I am on the wall doing V0, V1, whatever the easiest routes are up. And
was your family all scientists too?
No doctoral degrees before mine. No scientists.
What made you feel like this is what you wanted to do? As a young
so I went to Wesleyan. I was going to be a bio major to do ecology. Okay. Right. Then they said, "Wait, we're not that great at ecology. You should learn molecular biology here." Right. So I learned molecular biology. I was in a fly lab, Drosophila melanogaster, and then I had the charming. So that's a fly. That's a fruit fly.
Okay.
It's a fruit fly.
Okay, thank you. Can you just dumb it down?
Okay,
please.
I'm sorry. It's just like too
please.
many syllables, right?
Way too many.
So
I can't even say. I still can't say that word.
As a mom, you're going to like this.
Okay.
So I had the quaint idea that you go to college not to be a burden on your parents, to get a job, right, and to support yourself.
Oh my gosh.
My son actually agrees. My son did the same thing. My son.
What does your son do now?
He works at a credit union in Iowa City. Got his degree from University of Iowa. Okay. Interviewed for one job, got the job, salary and benefits day one. It was just amazing.
And he's happy and fine.
Yeah, he's happy. He's great.
Okay.
So and shout out to Freeman Brenner. So I wanted to support myself. Right. What do you do with the biology degree? Graduated in 1983, biotech. Not even called biotech at the time.
Right.
It was called the genetic engineering industry. And it started in Route 128 Strip in Boston, which is basically where I'm from. And, the San Francisco Bay Area, which is where I
ended up. Yeah.
Yeah. So I basically I wanted to, use what I learned in college. And then I was in two different environments. Basically, one is Chiron Corporation. And then I was at DNAX Research Institute, DNAX, which was owned by Shearing Plow at the time already. But both of them had a really, research component to them, even though they had, profit motive. They also taught me how to function as a team. Because you have fully formed PhD scientists at both of those organizations that could put their brains together with teams and get a project done, which is kind of rare in academia where it's like a little fiefdom. So I learned something really valuable about doing science and organization of science in my biotech era. But I also realized I'm going to hit a glass ceiling there without a PhD. So I stayed in the Bay Area, but I went to Stanford. It got my PhD there.
Wow. And so basically then you're doing all this stuff with a team of people then, all this.
You can't do it by myself.
You can't so how big is your team?
Not big enough now. We're rebuilding, having moved, but, we have a very talented, lab manager, technician. Jeff Hagelin, actually, is from my alma mater, Wesleyan University. I have a research assistant professor, Abdallah El-Khal, who was spent a decade at Harvard, doing NAD related things. It's very complementary to my own. I have a postdoc, Dr. Udo, we call her, and she's phenomenal. She came from kind of a DNA repair background. And I have a new graduate student, His name is a little hard to pronounce also, but he goes by Hi Fam. So Hi Fam, and he's working on NAD metabolism. So we're kind of like split between cancer, which we want to kill by understanding something about NAD, and then metabolic diseases that we want to prevent and treat. And that's kind of a unique thing about our unit at City of Hope. So
then can I ask you a question then? Because that one thing we didn't talk, we talked about the Alzheimer's and everything else. Can NAD or something help with cancer? Because you just meant that's one thing. Is there any kind of research being done on that?
Yeah. So that's like two or three part question. So one is that we've had data for a long time and published it that NR is active in like a mouse model of diabetic neuropathy, and then in a rat model of chemotherapeutic neuropathy. So dose limiting side effect of a lot of cancer chemotherapy drugs is neuropathy. And Donna Hammond, my former colleague at University of Iowa, was really interested in that. And so we showed NR was protective in rats, and then she's gone on to show doesn't increase tumor incidence, and looks like, from the animal data, it ought to be safe. And then she's testing it in women that are undergoing cancer chemotherapy to see whether it prevents against neuropathy, which is great. So there's some animal studies that show that by improving, DNA repair, it could be protective. There's a huge study in Australia showing that daily B3 nicotinamide was protective against skin cancer, which is very high incidence in Australia. So we think that NR would be safe, in the context of cancer. But my collaborator, Dr. Ranjit Bindra at Yale University, and I discovered that there's certain tumors that have dysregulated NAD where you could target NAD. You want to knock NAD down, basically to kill tumors. Not in every person's cancer. Like it's not going to be a breast cancer drug, but it'll be a drug for tumors that have a dysregulated NAD system. So it could work for some fraction, maybe 20% of breast cancer, maybe 20% of a glioma population, maybe 20% of this. And so it'll be combined with a companion diagnostic. So Ranjit and I are co-founders with Kevin Rakin of a new company that is getting off the ground in order to target NAD in cancer.
Wow. So how do people find more information if they want to know more about your research, what your findings are?
Good.
Where can they find you?
Okay, so brennerlab.net. So they can go to http://brennerlab.net. They can follow me on Twitter. It's Charles M. Brenner. And I actually answer questions about NAD almost every day.
Do you?
Yeah, on Twitter.
And so you respond to people. You get to talk to people. Good.
Yeah, I'm pretty accessible. Good. And they can look at our lab website, and it's always a pleasure.
Yeah, they can also go to Chromadex or TrueNiagen.com. There's a lot of information there if you want. But you've been a pleasure. Thank you. Although
Thanks.
I got to go back and listen to it 3 more times because I didn't really understand everything and try to listen very intently.
Okay.
I literally said to you before we start, please keep it like in layman's terms.
I failed miserably.
Given some of the other interviews, I think this was actually an improvement because
I've been worse in the past.
Well, I don't know if you've been worse. Maybe the host has been smarter. I don't know, or been better. But I think I kind of followed. Hopefully people followed the majority.
Great.
But I said to everyone, please have Google open and please have either a thesaurus or someone who's in the science world besides you.
Great.
So you can stop and pause and kind of continue.
Cool.
But thank you so much for coming on.
Pleasure. All right. Take
Bye.
Care. Bye.
Habits and hustle, time to get it rolling. Stay up on the grind, don't stop, keep it going. Habits and hustle, from nothing into something. All out, hosted by Jennifer Cohen. Visionaries, tune in, you can get to know them. Be inspired, this is your moment. Excuses, we ain't having that. The Habits and Hustle podcast, powered by Happiness.